I was 63 years old when my own son signed the papers declaring me mentally incompetent. My wife stood beside him in that lawyer's office, her hand on his shoulder, both of them calm as Sunday morning. I remember the sound of the pen scratching across the document. I remember thinking about the 37 years I'd given her. And I remember the exact moment I decided they'd both pay for what they were doing. Hello, friends. Thanks for joining us today at True Experience. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to stay connected with more real-life tales of betrayal and justice. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community across the USA, Canada, and around the world. Quick note, what you're about to hear contains details some may find disturbing. This account reflects one person's experience and perspective. We encourage listeners to approach family legal matters through proper channels and qualified professionals. I need to go back to understand how we got there. I married Patricia in 1986. I was 26. She was 24. We met at a church function in Detroit. She had this way of laughing that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Her father owned a small printing business. My father was a union steward at the Ford plant. We weren't rich, but we were stable. Our son Michael came 2 years later. Normal pregnancy, normal delivery, normal childhood. I worked overtime whenever they offered it. Patricia stayed home until Michael started school. Then she took a part-time job at the library. We saved. We planned. We bought a 3-bedroom house in Dearborn in 1993. Not fancy, but it was ours. I need you to understand, I wasn't a drunk. I wasn't a gambler. I didn't chase women. I came home every night. I went to Michael's baseball games, his school plays, his parent-teacher conferences. When Patricia's mother got sick in 2001, I paid for the nursing care. When her brother needed money for his daughter's surgery, I wrote the check. I did what you're supposed to do. Michael went to college in 2006, University of Michigan. I was proud. We were both proud. He studied business administration. Patricia cried at his graduation. I shook his hand and told him he'd done well. He got a job at a consulting firm in Chicago. Good salary. Nice apartment. He called every Sunday. In 2015, my father died. He left me the house he'd owned in Hamtramck, the one he'd bought in 1968. Small place, 2 bedrooms, but the neighborhood had changed. Property values had gone up. A developer approached me 6 months after the funeral, offered me $340,000 for it. I took the offer. That money changed everything, though I didn't see it at first. Patricia suggested we put it in a joint account. Made sense. We were married, we shared everything. But I'd been reading about estate planning, about protecting assets. My cousin Richard, he'd gone through a divorce the year before, lost half of everything. It made me think. I put $200,000 in the joint account. The remaining $140,000 went into an account in my name only. I told Patricia it was for our retirement, that I wanted to invest it carefully. She didn't argue. She smiled and said whatever I thought was best. Michael visited that Christmas. He'd brought a girl, Amanda, an attorney from his firm. Nice enough. Quiet. They got engaged 4 months later. The wedding was in June 2017. I paid for half, $23,000. Patricia's parents contributed the rest. Big affair at some country club in Lake Forest. 200 guests. Open bar. I wore the suit Patricia picked out and smiled for the photographs. That's when things started shifting, though so slowly I barely noticed. Michael stopped calling every Sunday. It became every other Sunday, then once a month. Patricia said he was busy with work, with married life. I understood that. I remembered being young and busy. In 2018, Patricia started mentioning investments. She'd been talking to Michael. He knew people in finance. Apparently, there were opportunities. Real estate investment trusts. Tech stocks. Things that could grow our retirement fund faster than conservative bonds I'd chosen. I said no. I'd seen too many guys at the plant lose their pensions in 2008. I wasn't gambling our future. She stopped asking after a while. We still had dinner together. We still went to church on Sundays. But something had cooled between us, like a room where someone left a window open. In 2019, I retired. 40 years at Ford, 28 of them on the assembly line. They gave me a watch and a pension. Patricia threw me a party at the VFW hall. Michael drove in from Chicago. Everyone said the right things. I started noticing things after retirement. Small things. Patricia on her phone more than usual. Texting someone, putting it face down when I walked into the room. Trips to visit her sister in Grand Rapids that lasted 4 days. Michael calling her cell instead of the house phone. I'm not stupid. I wondered if she was having an affair. I even checked her phone once when she was in the shower. Nothing obvious. Just text to Michael about appointments, about some paperwork, about waiting for the right time. I asked her what they were talking about. She said they were planning a surprise for me. Anniversary gift. Our anniversary came and went. No surprise. Just dinner at the same Italian restaurant we always went to. The next year, 2020, the pandemic hit. We were locked down together in that house for months. Patricia seemed agitated, constantly refreshing her email, making calls from the garage. She said she was worried about Michael, about the economy. I believed her. Michael started asking questions during our video calls. How was I feeling? Was I remembering to take my blood pressure medication? Had I been forgetting things? I hadn't been forgetting anything. I was 61 years old, healthy except for the blood pressure, but they kept asking. Patricia, too. Did I remember where I put my keys? Had I paid the electric bill? Did I recall what we had for dinner yesterday? I started to feel watched. In March 2021, Patricia suggested I see a doctor. Just a checkup? She said. I was getting older. It would be good to have a baseline. I went. Physical exam, blood work, everything normal. But the doctor also had me do some cognitive tests. Memory, problem solving, that sort of thing. I did fine. The doctor said so. But when I got home, Patricia seemed disappointed. That summer, Michael and Amanda moved back to Michigan. He'd gotten a position at a firm in Detroit. They bought a house in Birmingham. Nice neighborhood. Expensive. I wonder how they afforded it on their salaries. But I didn't ask. They started coming to visit every Sunday. Michael always brought up finances. How were we managing on my pension? Had we thought about downsizing? The house in Dearborn was too big for 2 people, wasn't it? I said we were fine. The house was paid off. The pension was enough. Then came Thanksgiving 2022. We hosted, me, Patricia, Michael, Amanda, Patricia's sister, and her husband. After dinner, while the women were cleaning up, Michael sat me down in the living room. He had papers, documents, power of attorney. He said, just a precaution, in case something happened to me. Someone would be able to handle my affairs. He'd already gotten one from Patricia. She'd signed last week. I read through it. It gave him authority over my finances, my medical decisions, everything. I told him no. I told him if I ever needed something like that, I'd do it myself with my own lawyer. He got quiet. Then he said something I'll never forget. Dad, we're just trying to help. You're not as sharp as you used to be. I asked him what he meant. He looked at Patricia, who'd come in from the kitchen. She sat down next to him. They'd been talking to my doctor, they said. Behind my back, the doctor had concerns. Memory issues, confusion, early signs of decline. I called my doctor the next Monday. He said he'd never spoken to them. He said my records were confidential, and he wouldn't have discussed me with anyone without my permission. I went home and confronted Patricia. She cried. She said she was worried. She said Michael was worried. She said they only wanted what was best for me. I didn't believe her anymore. I started paying closer attention. I changed my passwords. I checked my accounts daily. I made copies of important documents and gave them to my cousin Richard. In February 2023, Patricia told me she needed to visit her sister again. She'd be gone a week. I said fine. The day after she left, I went through her home office. I found a folder hidden in the bottom drawer of her filing cabinet. Inside were bank statements from the joint account. She'd been moving money. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $1,000 there. Over the past 3 years, she transferred nearly $80,000 from our joint account into an account with both her name and Michael's on it. There were emails, too, printed out, dated over 2 years. Patricia and Michael discussing the plan, how I was sitting on money that could be better used, how they needed to position things before I wasted it on who knows what. There was an email from Michael to some lawyer asking about conservatorship proceedings, about what was required to have someone declared incompetent. I sat in that office for an hour, reading and rereading. 37 years of marriage, a son I'd raised, paid for, been proud of, and this is what I was worth to them. Patricia came home a week later, smiling, asking how I'd been. I didn't say anything. I acted normal. I made dinner. I asked about her sister. I started preparing. I transferred the remaining money from our joint account into my personal account, about $120,000. I contacted an estate attorney, Patricia. Didn't know. A woman Richard recommended. I created a new will, a living trust, medical directives, all of it explicitly excluding Patricia and Michael. My beneficiaries were my cousin Richard and a children's hospital in Detroit. I documented everything. I printed the emails from Patricia's office and gave copies to my attorney. I got statements showing the unauthorized transfers. Then I waited. In April 2023, Michael called. He wanted to take me to lunch. Just the two of us, father and son. We went to a diner near my house. He ordered coffee, didn't touch it. He had more papers. He said he'd been talking to an attorney. He said, given my declining mental state, it would be best if he managed my finances. There was a legal process, but it would be simple if I cooperated. He could have me assessed by a doctor, a real specialist, not my regular physician. The specialist would evaluate me, and if I was found to be unable to manage my own affairs, a judge would appoint Michael as my conservator. I asked him what happened if I refused. He said then they'd have to do it the hard way. Court proceedings, evaluations, testimony from Patricia about my forgetfulness, my confusion. It would be embarrassing for everyone. I told him I needed time to think about it. He said I had 2 weeks. I called my attorney that afternoon. She said we needed to act fast. She filed for divorce on my behalf the next morning. 37 years of marriage, dissolved in a stack of papers. I also filed a police report about the unauthorized transfers from the joint account, and I sent Michael a certified letter, notifying him that I was of sound mind. I had legal representation, and any attempt to have me declared incompetent would be challenged. Patricia got the divorce papers 3 days later. She came home screaming. I'd never heard her scream before. She said I was crazy, I was throwing away our life, I was destroying the family. I showed her the printed emails. I showed her the bank statements. She went quiet. Then she said I didn't understand. She said the money was supposed to be for all of us, for Michael, for our future grandchildren. She said I was being selfish, keeping it to myself. I told her to pack a bag and leave. Michael showed up an hour later. He wasn't screaming. He was cold, controlled. He said I was making a mistake. He said he could still have me evaluated, still prove incompetence. I told him to do his worst. They tried. God, they tried. Michael hired an attorney. They filed for conservatorship in May 2023, claiming I was unable to manage my finances due to cognitive decline. They had Patricia's testimony, sworn statements about my forgetfulness, my confusion, my inability to make simple decisions. But I had documentation. Medical records showing normal cognitive function. Bank records showing I've been managing my accounts competently for decades. Character witnesses, guys from the plant, people from church, neighbors who'd known me for years. And I had those emails. Proof that this wasn't about my mental health. It was about my money. The hearing was in July. They brought their doctor, a psychiatrist who'd evaluated me once for 30 minutes, and declared I showed signs of early dementia. My attorney tore him apart on cross-examination. How could he diagnose dementia from one 30-minute session? Had he reviewed my medical history? Did he know I'd passed multiple cognitive tests with my regular physician? The judge reviewed everything. The medical records, the financial documents, the emails. He looked at Michael and Patricia sitting together on one side of the courtroom, then at me sitting alone on the other. He denied the conservatorship petition. He said there was no credible evidence of mental incompetence. He said it appeared to be a family dispute over finances, not a medical issue. The divorce went through in September. Michigan is a no-fault state, but the financial settlement considered Patricia's unauthorized transfers. She got half of what we'd accumulated during the marriage, but I got credit for the money she'd moved to Michael's account. She walked away with less than she'd planned. The house was sold. We split the proceeds. She moved into an apartment in Warren. Michael hasn't spoken to me since the hearing. Neither has Amanda. I heard through Richard that they had a daughter last year. I have a granddaughter I've never met. Patricia tried to reconcile about 6 months after the divorce. She called, so we could work things out, said Michael had pressured her, that she'd made mistakes. I told her I had nothing to say to her. She sent me a card last Christmas. I threw it away without opening it. Here's what I learned, and what they learned too late. That $140,000 I'd kept separate, I'd invested it conservatively like I planned. It's worth about $180,000 now. When I die, it goes to charity and to Richard's kids. Patricia and Michael won't see a penny. But the real payback wasn't financial. Last month, I got a call from a lawyer in Chicago. Apparently, Amanda filed for divorce from Michael. She found out about some financial improprieties at his firm. Money missing from client accounts. Irregularities that looked like embezzlement. Michael's under investigation. He might face charges. I can't say I'm surprised. A man who'd steal from his father would steal from anyone. Patricia called me when she heard. She was crying, saying our son was in trouble, asking if there was anything I could do. I told her our son stopped being my concern the day he tried to have me declared insane to steal my inheritance. Then I hung up. I'm 65 years old now. I live in a small condo in Livonia. I have coffee with Richard every Tuesday. I volunteer at the VA hospital on Thursdays. I'm thinking about taking a trip to Alaska next summer, something I always wanted to do. I sleep fine at night. They wanted to take my dignity, my autonomy, my life savings. They wanted to make me into a helpless old man they could control. Instead, they lost everything. Patricia lost her marriage and her comfortable retirement. Michael lost his wife, possibly his career, definitely his father. And me? I lost a wife who never loved me, only what I could provide. I lost a son who saw me as an obstacle instead of father. I didn't lose anything worth keeping. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. This isn't an easy story to tell, but it's the truth of what happened to me. If this resonates with you, if you face a trail from the people who should have had your back, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me your story if you want to. This community is here to listen, to support, and to remind each other that we're not alone. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the worst. But you don't have to let them win. You can still choose dignity. You can still choose yourself. I did, and I'd do it again.